a bike is much more than just a bike. Sure, it's a utilitarian mode of transport, a way to keep fit, or a way to perform in competition. But more often than we probably believe, a bike can transcend those utilitarian uses and become much more of a symbol, a talisman, an amulet maybe, and take on a much greater purpose and meaning. And I believe a bike can stir emotion more than anything else I can think of. They can be exciting, they can be reassuring, they can be a steady companion, they can have their own personality, and they can even develop some kind of a soul. Now, today's project, which is just in the dark behind me, is a real embodiment of that idea. This then is the MASON Resolution. It is a steel road bike and it is beautifully modern in its execution, but it shares a beautiful classic looks. It is elegant, it is sophisticated, but yet it's still practical and reassuring in its design as well. Now, so far, the build has consisted of all this beautiful Ritchy polished aluminium finishing kit, Chris King headset and a Chris King bottom bracket. Our task today is to put the cherry on top of this build, is to finish it with its group set. And there's a little glimpse of it over there on the counter. Can you guess what it is? This is the Shimano GRX Limited Edition, and it is an absolute work of art. And I could not imagine a more perfect group set to adorn this MASON Resolution bike. Now, this limited edition group set is essentially polished aluminium look of the GRX group set, and this is a particular 2x11 setup. Those chain rings at the front are a 48-31, giving some nice low ratio gears. We're going to match that up with that 11 through to 34 cassette on the back. The rear mech has also had this beautiful polished aluminium, and it looks like it's gone through an extra stage of polishing because all the surfaces are just that much smoother and more rounded than we're used to seeing from a standard GRX. Not an awful lot of modification has gone onto the front mech, but definitely on those levers, they share that same polished aluminium. But really the big news is this crankset, and this crankset is just, there's so many little finishing touches on here. The outer chainring, as you can see, has actually got some extra CNC marking, so I think this has been a custom made piece. The inner chainring is the standard GRX one in the black. The brake calipers are slightly different to the regular GRX calipers, and it looks like they're taking these from the current Dura-Ace range. There's a slight little design tweak in there, hopefully just giving it a little bit more pad clearance as well. So I think you'll agree this looks amazing, and we know this group set performs really well. So let's get it fitted. We're almost done with this build, and I thought I'll tell you the story of this build while I do the bar taping. You see, it's a lovely, inspiring story. The bike was actually commissioned by a husband and wife who sadly had some bad news that she didn't have very long to live, and they wanted to build this bike and enjoy one last glorious summer of riding together. And I can imagine them sitting down and building out this bike and how they wanted it to look, how they wanted it to ride, and those conversations. And I think you really do get an insight into someone's personality. And you know, the whole choice of materials and the choice of group set, and I'm really starting to think, you know, what would she have been like? I think she would have been a really, really fascinating lady. I would love to have met her. If ever there was a bike with a personality, you're looking at it. And as I'm wrapping this bar tape, I'm taking so much care to get all the wraps absolutely perfect. I'm trying to imagine the personality that she was. And I think you can tell a lot from the sort of choices people make with their bikes. And this is definitely one of those unusual bikes. It really does make you think, what was she like? Now, there's a few of you out there that are probably getting a little bit triggered about how I'm wrapping bar tape, but I'll explain that in a second. But the important thing is that right now it needs to be super neat. Finishing that edge off. What I like to do is cut an absolutely pristine, sharp edge. And when I'm just finishing this off, just the tiniest little overlap, just to almost seal the end of the tape. Pulling quite tight, but not so tight that I get little ripples in the tape. And cutting so that the join sits underneath. Now, the reason that I wrap in this direction is the old argument is you've got to sort of wrap in the direction of the rider's hands. Now, and one argument is that a rider actually rides like they're going to rev up a motorcycle by doing this and they'd unwrap it. I don't know many people that actually do that. What actually happens is you tend to ride with your hands in this position, and as you transition down onto the hoods, you tend to do this as you're changing gear. And this is actually going to be tightening the wrap in that direction as you come down from the hoods and into this position and changing gear. That's how you would tighten. It's that movement there that would tighten it up. The other thing I think people do is they tend to ride, when they're just relaxing, they tend to do this with their hands and just roll in and just relax. I don't know many people that actually do this motorbiking sort of style thing. I think it was something that was quite common when handlebars were a completely different design. You might remember the heavy drops and the levers would be halfway down the bars, and you'd normally ride quite overgeared. You know, back in the 80s, 90s, etc., people always had big rings on their bikes, and they'd assume a climbing position where they're right off the back of the saddle, hunched back and really pulling back, chewing the handlebar tape off almost. Nowadays, we tend to ride with much lower gear ratios, a higher cadence, and with much better hip flexibility as well, and a better riding position. So I don't know many people that actually ride with that pulling back, except for possibly sort of more heavy set rugby player type build people, or potentially riders who've got very, very poor hip flexibility who ride with quite a curved back. They tend to do that as well. But generally speaking, this is my preferred method for bar taping. So now you know. There we go. Only one thing left to do. Let's get it out of the stand, give it a polish, and get those fantastic close-up shots for you to enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this video.
是你